the reason I invited all three of you is you guys have all made your life into a business. Like, you are now doing your business full time. I wanted to ask you about the things that got you here and how you got to be, I guess, what people would consider you as successful, whether or not you consider yourself successful. So what do you see success as an entrepreneur or as being your own boss? Anyone can start.
I can go. So for me, success is less about like I'm making this certain amount of money or I'm doing XYZ. For me, I really learned that when what I'm spending my days doing is aligned with who I am and my true personality and my true values, and I'm able to comfortably support myself and to dream big and to think big and keep moving forward constantly, that's what I see success for me being. Whether that's my personal life or my professional life, or really in reality, both of them put together, it's being true to who I am, because then I don't feel like I'm living a life that I need to escape from. And that's what I talk about a lot. And so it's like, instead of coming home from a long day at work and eating a glass of wine, my success is actually like, I'm living a life where I don't feel like I need to do that.
Oh, that's great.
For me, I think it's so simple, and I've been able to like dissect it and like think about it a lot. And for me, it's really just my ability to give. And for me, I feel like the gifts that I have, like the more capacity I have to do things for others, whether it's something like this where I'm like, hey, you all get to learn from like how I f***ed up in life and like things that I've done, like the good things that I've done, but how I've like worked hard to get there. Like my ability to give to others, whether that's knowledge that I have, whether that's like buying someone flowers. I got someone flowers the other day. Just like being able to do things for others. And that for me doesn't have a monetary value, but as you said, like when you can get to the end of a day and you don't feel like you have to have a drink, though whiskey's usually something that I love to have, good day or bad day, if I can go to bed and be like, hey, I did something for someone else, that is a great measure for me on like my success in how I'm doing in life and business.
They're so good. It's so interesting. I'm third. This is going to be a really interesting panel. It's all of those things, but it's really living my purpose. For a very long time, I looked for what am I supposed to do? I said, I knew I would be very good, exceptionally good at it if I only knew what it was. And what the heck was it? And I was a yoga teacher and a fitness instructor, and I tried everything. And it just landed, and for 11 years, I've never looked back, and it's really living my purpose. What is that Gary Zukov quote? Does anyone know when something meets your personality?
Oh, I know what you're talking about, but I don't know.
Okay, we will reference it, but it's really, it's who I am at the core. It's making an impact. I feel like this may sound a little woo-woo for all of you. We have Katrina here. But I think that when I am being a channel, when I really when I get out of the way, which sometimes can be really ego, what I want for me, I want the money and I want the success and recognition, and I've gotten all of that. And when you strip that, then you find it's the little conversation that makes someone cry. It's a little conversation that shifts the needle. It's someone feeling better at the end of the day. So for me, it's literally, I may have the crappiest day, but when I connect with someone and I'm in my element where I'm like truly being of service, and when you can just tell this is really woo, but they just started radiating. I can go home and I just feel full. Then I can be full with my children. I can be full with my husband, and it's full interpretation of my soul and who I am.
It's interesting, Jenna, because it seems like you have created a panel of all Enneagram 2s, yourself included.
I am also an Enneagram 2, yes. That's true.
So I don't know if you guys
just
know
attracted
Enneagram,
that.
but I'm assuming you're also an Enneagram 2.
Maybe I've never taken the test.
Oh.
Wow, I'm learning so much.
Wow.
The helper.
It's the helper,
yes,
yeah.
the helper.
So,
It's, yeah. That's so fun. I never even thought about that. Maybe that's why we all found each other. That's awesome. Oops. But okay, so I guess, do you consider then that success in life and as an entrepreneur the same? Is that different?
I guess for me, it's similar. Success for me is the capacity and the ability to give. And when it's my business, it's giving to my clients, it's giving to other entrepreneurs, it's giving to like people in the community. But when it comes to like my family, it's like giving time to my boyfriend. In the future, like it's giving time to my kids when I have those. It's being able to take my dog for a walk, or say yes to someone last minute being like, Laura, I've had a rough day, like can we grab some coffee? Yes. If I have the capacity and ability, and being able to say yes to those things. Is like Allie up here is very good at like scaling her business, and she has a lot of people working with her and for her, and so she's able to say yes to other things that she really loves because she has someone else on her team taking care of something. So that is just how I as well like pursue my why and my yes, and how I define my success. So
I agree completely. And I think for me too, I have created my business so that I don't see it as like this is my life and this is my business. My life is part of my business and my business is part of my life, and they're so intertwined that they have to all connect. It has to make sense in both ways. And yeah, it's being able to give to my clients and give to my friends and family members, and be able to really fulfill that innate desire that I have in every area of my life.
You're good? Okay. Yeah, same. One thing that we kind of been talking about is the highs, the successes. Let's talk about the hurdles. What has been the biggest thing you've had to overcome, and how has that affected you and maybe made you stronger?
It's interesting because Yasna and I were talking about this before we started talking, basically, before the podcast started. And I actually trained with Yasna when I first became a coach. And we were reminiscing about like when I was at the point where I was like so afraid to be openly vulnerable with other people, which is not even anywhere close to my personality now. But that was even just like 2 years ago. Like I was terrified to go on Instagram stories. I was terrified to show up in a certain way in front of other people or be perceived as something. And I kind of had to really just be like, you know, I'm letting all of that go, and who cares what people think, because I would rather be liked for who I truly am, or hated for who I truly am, than liked or hated for who I'm not actually. And so creating my business, because it's so tied to my personal life, was so intimate and vulnerable, and me really having to be open to the entire world, that I kind of was just like, screw it, I'm doing this, and I haven't looked back.
And look at her now.
Crazy.
I think for me, my business difficulties and like a personal difficulty, when it comes to business, hands down, it's been like paralysis by analysis. So like thinking of like, oh my gosh, like I want to be an entrepreneur. What the heck does that mean? Like, what does that mean to like be a photographer? Does that mean I also need to be my own like accountant and like do taxes, and like what the heck is invoicing, because I just want to be with my camera. And so it would be like paralysis by analysis, and what that means essentially is like you have all these things you have to do and you don't do anything because like what the heck am I supposed to do? And so I learned you just have to start. You have to pick one thing, or like make a list and do one of the hardest things first, or just start. And like, as I said on my podcast that we had, like you might be scared of pursuing something, so that paralyzes you, but like do it scared. Like don't wait till you're ready, because you're not going to be. I'm still not ready for what I'm doing now. I'm like, what am I doing? Like, oh my gosh, but I think I've got this. And then when it came to, and still comes to like my personal life, I'm dating someone now, but for the last 6 years I was single. Like 1, by choice, and 2, like it just was not working out, you guys. Like I couldn't find someone. They weren't finding me. I don't know what it was, but we're in such a world where people are like, oh, so you're like, you live by yourself, and like you have a business by yourself, like you're traveling by yourself, like what's wrong with you? Or like, do you have friends? And as much as I'd love to say like that was a really easy part of my life, because I think social media comes across in that way sometimes, man, like it sucked sometimes. Like I would come home from a really long wedding day and be like bawling in my car, like no one loves me, like call my mom at like midnight, and she's like, you'll find someone someday. And I'm like, no, I won't. And having those conversations. But like honestly, in my personal life in recent years, that's one of the more difficult things that I've had to go through. And I don't think we open that up for conversation as much, because we're supposed to be strong. It's like, no, I'm an independent woman, it's fine. And like I am an independent woman, but like I want someone to like go home to and be like, oh my gosh, today like I do need that whiskey or that like glass of wine, and talk to someone. And in a world where it seems we all are in the pursuit of something else, with someone else, it's hard to be in a place alone. And so making that space like for myself that was like comfortable and okay to be at was not easy. Worth it because I learned so much about myself, and now I'm with someone who's incredible. And if I would have like been with any of those other guys, I wouldn't have met him, but it doesn't mean that like makes that process any easier. So
oh boy. I think that if you really want to know what insanity is, you should start a business. I've gone through so many different, I've been in the business for so long. So I think when I first started, it was like I was the weird person and like, what the heck is a life coach? That's how I started. People didn't even know what it meant to start a business. So it was real loneliness and being weird and being called out as weird and people not understanding. I think some people may still resonate with like, why don't you just go find a nice job in a cubicle? That's what my mom tells me every time. My mom still does not know what I do after a decade. So it was really that loneliness of figuring out, like trusting myself enough on some of those things. And as it evolved, it was delegating, thinking I don't have to do my own website. I don't have to do everything by myself. There's actually like I should pay others. And that was really difficult because initially I was like holding on to every dollar, like, this is my income. I have to pay 30% in taxes. This is crazy. All of these things. And it was really trusting that the business is going to be abundant and it was going to grow. And then there's just all of these multiple changes. But the biggest struggle, this is something that's on my heart right now. And I'm very open about it, is that I have 2 small children and I get very overwhelmed. I have a full team. I have a very fast growing business, multiple different companies. And I feel that I want to give it my all, but my family is my priority. So I really struggle because in order to grow your business, you have to be all in. You can't have, you can't half-ass it. I'm just saying. Go ahead.
I think we bleeped out words like 3 times on my podcast.
But I feel like we have to go all in. If you're growing something, you're not going to have, I think, as much traction. And at the same time, I'm my happiest when I'm with my children. So I'm really struggling with growing and that type A personality. Like I want to grow the business and build the biggest building in town, and saying like I really want to have a date night with my husband and spend crazy amounts of time with my children. So it changes. It's very up and down, as we all know. We've seen the graphic where it's like the journey is all over the place. But I think it changes. What I would say is, whatever the challenge or the biggest fear at any given time, that's precisely what you're supposed to overcome to get to the next level. So don't avoid it. If putting yourself on a video is uncomfortable, do it. Just the faster you rip off the Band-Aid, the better you will be, because that's where the growth happens the most. So for me, I think the greatest gift is not the money, which is fabulous. It's who I'm becoming in the process, like learning about myself. I'm like, oh my God, I never uncovered this part of I don't know about you, but I think it's very empowering. So that would be pretty much the biggest.
Yeah, I was just getting clipped for that. So going with that, what is the reason that you decided to go all in and become an entrepreneur? What was like the leap? What was that point where you're like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to go all in.
I feel like I shouldn't say this, but I'm going to. I don't work well for other people. I don't. I'm just being honest. Like I feel suffocated when I'm micromanaged. I'm ADD to the point of like, I was in a cubicle, I'd be like, what you doing for lunch? Where are we going to go out? And I did not do well in like school and college, honestly. Like I was a straight B student at best and didn't ever understand why. Like how my brain works is not conducive to like taking tests. Like I just shut down. And so I got to like the end of college, or like more so the beginning, like long story short, was at the end of college, kind of started over again. And once I started over again, I was like, wow, it's okay to know what you're not good at. It's really okay. In fact, that's great. And it's okay to be honest with yourself and say like, hey, I don't work good in an environment for others. And what I believe is you either are going to be hired by someone else to help them pursue their dream, or you can get out and pursue your own dream. And I was like, okay, I'm going to go pursue my own dream. I don't have to listen to other people. And like, paralysis by now kicked in, and I'm like, but now what do you do? And photography for me kind of like evolved from there. And I was like, it's something that I'm passionate about. So even if I don't find monetary success, like when I first started out, I was in a 250 square foot apartment, and I was just paying my bills by like, barely paying my bills by like doing photo shoots. But I'm like, bottom line, I don't have to answer to other people, and I'm doing something that I love. So I was still just as happy then as I am now. So it's kind of like where it started and like why it started for me. And it's okay to be honest with yourself and say like, hey, I'm not good at like listening to others. Or it's okay, like my sister works in a lab at Mayo Clinic. My sister thrives in an environment where she has a checklist that someone else puts together for her, and that is fine. We are like polar opposites, but we're both very honest and like totally okay with like who we are as people. So know what you're good at, know what you're bad at, and pursue something that you're passionate about that like plays into your strengths.
It's a great answer.
For me, it was a little bit more personal. I had a hell of a year. My mom had been going through breast cancer, and I was at a job that I absolutely hated. And it was like coming to work every single day was slowly, like actually I was probably depressed, like slowly killing me. And then basically I was also in a relationship that was not supportive, not the right place for me to be at. And so I basically had to make the decision to change what was going on. Otherwise, my normal personality, the things that keep me going, the way that I move forward in life, was slowly going to get lost. I was becoming like an anxious, overwhelmed person. I was not happy whatsoever. And so I actually called Yasna, and I was like, hi, what's being a life coach like? I think I'm going to do something else. But it was one of those situations where I was like, okay, I distinctly remember the moment. I was driving to Iowa to visit some friends. I'm listening to a podcast in the car, and this person was an entrepreneur, and they were talking about how they were doing something that they felt fulfilled by every single day. And I was like, I want that. I want to feel fulfilled. I want to do something that I'm excited to work on every single day. And it also really connected to me because that entrepreneur was doing something that was directly helping other people. And she was like, this is what keeps me going. In the days when it is really hard and I am really lonely or I am really struggling, I have this other person that I'm helping, and that provides a motivating factor for me. And so I was like, okay, great. These are things that I absolutely am excited about and passionate about, and I want to help other people. So what do I want to do helping other people? And I kind of went down the rabbit hole of like, well, I could be a psychologist, but like I don't want to go back to school. And I could be a social worker, but like could I really leave those situations at home at the end of the day, or would I be taking work home with me every single day? Because as Jenna knows, we've talked about, I'm an empath. I will definitely be feeling your feelings. If you're crying, I'm probably about to cry. Yeah. And so it was one of those situations where I was like, okay, so what is a life coach? I don't even know what this is. Maybe I'm interested in it. And I worked with Yasna. It was totally what I was supposed to be doing. And I basically made the decision. I was like, I remember telling her this, I think in our very first phone call, I want to be out of this job by the end of the year. And she was. And I was. And I had gotten to the point where I was like, maybe I'll just stay here. And they're like, actually, we'll give you severance if you leave. And I was like, great, sounds good. Okay, that's a very big sign. Yeah. But it is something where I'm like, that it basically was literally life-changing. I had to do something, or else I was going to continue in a path of my life that would have been fine. Mm-hmm. I would have been fine, but I don't want a fine life. I want a life I'm excited about.
Okay, that's awesome. Yasna?
I really admire you so much for like having the bravery and insight at how old were you when you made the shift?
I was 21.
Oh my goodness. Oh, you're such an old soul.
Thank you.
I did not have that. And I think that's so beautiful, but that's an incredible gift that you have. Know thyself, like that's something that I feel like I've come to in my old age. I'm not old, but it's getting there. But for me, it was really personal, and I had to have very many knocks. And how I wish that I had that. Like that's what a gift! What a gift! We'll have to talk about that. But I actually have started coaching 5 years before quitting my job. And, it was just this foo-foo thing. And I really thrived on, part of my identity was succeeding in corporate America and having a title. And without a title, I didn't know who the hell I was. I'm also an immigrant, so I grew up in a refugee camp. So for me, being here and making 6 figures, being super successful, selling software, I was living the dream. Like, I had nothing to complain about. And then I support my family and my husband's family, and it was this joy. I felt really good. But I kept looking if I look back for my entire life, I was always a 2. I was always a helper, someone people could come to. And I genuinely care. I care more than I should, but I really, really care. And I just didn't have that insight or the bravery, or didn't even know what was possible. It's kind of like, you can have whatever you want for dinner. And I didn't even know that was an option, kind of thing. And for me, I started dabbling with coaching. I was reading everything about positive psychology there was. And it was, a friend said, I get more out of these conversations than I do from therapy, from 10 years of therapy. She's like, I feel like I should pay you. I'm like, what? You can get paid for this? This is really interesting. So it planted a seed in me, but it wasn't until a personal loss for me. So I was doing sales, selling software, and I had lost a child. And it was, looking back, it kind of makes sense, because I wouldn't want to come in that kind of environment of high stress. Has anyone here done sales? It's such high stress. You're only as good as your latest quota. And it was killing me. And I ended up having 9 miscarriages. And it was this loss after loss after loss. And I'm thinking, and the doctor telling me, you're never going to have children. So for me, that was the F it moment. If I'm never going to have children, then I might as well give up, because it was the insurance or the stability, all the things that mothers think about, right? And I just enrolled in a graduate program for coaching. And the moment I walked into the room, it's like, I've come home. Has anyone had that moment? You walk in and you're like, oh my God, this is it? That was a decade ago. I've never looked back.
That's so inspiring that you all have like that reason. So we only have 1 or 2 questions left, and then we're going to open it up to the audience, which I'm really excited about. We've never had a live audience been able to ask the questions that they want to hear the answer to. The final question or 2 I'm going to have is, how did you decide specifically what you wanted to do? Aligning, figuring out your niche. How did you decide? You probably went through a bunch of iterations of what you are into what you are now. How did you get to that point where you are specialized in what you're doing?
I think for me, I took time to answer that question, as opposed to jumping into corporate.
You're amazing.
Thanks. I knew it was a question that I wanted to answer before I jumped into adulthood. I didn't want to just jump in. I realized in college, I was like, whoa, I was 3.5 years into my elementary education degree, because at the core of who I am is a helper, a 2. And I was like, my natural progression was I can be a teacher or I can be a nurse. And those are the only ways I can help people. Wrong. And I was 2.5 years in and almost ready to graduate. And I was like, whoa, hold on. This doesn't feel right. And at that same moment that I was feeling that, I got my student teaching placement. I was a semester away from graduating. I was with my aunts on Lake Superior and their 5 sisters, and they were talking about childbirth and how it had changed their bodies. And they've been through everything from miscarriages to stillbirth to children with disabilities. And so they were talking about that. And I was like, you all are beautiful. You went through one of the most incredible things you can do as a woman, give birth to a child. And so I took photos of them on Lake Superior, and I showed them to them in their bathing suits, and they were like, Laura, oh my gosh, we had no idea, started crying, we feel so beautiful. And I was like, wow, oh my gosh, okay, you can do things for others with a camera, and I know how to use that, and no one's gonna tell me what to do, and wow, this really plays into my strengths as a person. And it might not be as stable as having a 401k and stability of insurance. I have really bad insurance, but gotta marry someone that has good insurance. That's why I picked Dan. So I had prayed about it. He's laughing. Prayed about it, and I came across this National Geographic competition, and they pick one out of 20,000 entries each year. And I was like, okay, Lord, if I am meant to be a photographer, I'm going to get published in National Geographic. If not, I'm going to be a teacher, and I'm like way cool with whatever happens. And I ended up getting published in National Geographic, went to my advisor the next day, and a week later, and I was like, so I'm going to change majors. And she's like, oh, to special education, because I had contemplated that. And I was like, nope, I'm going to be a photographer. And she's like, oh, sweetheart, so you're almost done with college. You should finish this. And I was like, no, because I won't love it. Like, I just won't. And I'm like, so what if I just wasted $30,000, which like, don't advise it, but I do advise it. Do it. Yes, absolutely waste that $30,000 if like you don't feel you're going to love what you do, so you don't end up at like 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, like doing something that you're like, what the hell did I just do with my life? Like, what am I doing? Like Ray, who I find to be such an inspiration. Like Ray, can you raise your hand for those? Yes, she's amazing. Like I absolutely adore her. And I met her at Boutique and we had a conversation, and like, man, she's like, I'm going to go to Paris by myself next week. And I'm like, hell yes, you are, Ray. Like, yes, you are. And like, surround yourself with like those people who are like doing what they love and not afraid of it. Because you shouldn't be afraid to be yourself. Like, you shouldn't be called brave for pursuing like who you want to be. Like, that's just social media and that's just marketing telling you like, no, you need to have someone with you. No, you have to like marry someone to be okay as a woman. Like, no, you don't, Dan, you're great. But if I was still single, I'd be like, yes, I'm gonna fuck up this world. It's gonna be great. Like, it's gonna be awesome. Like, find out who you are. Find out what you want to be. Answer that question, but honestly, it doesn't need to be answered in 10 minutes. It can take years. Take the time. Like, we're not in a rush. Like, you have the rest of your life to pursue what you love. Don't think you have to know about it yesterday. So that's awesome.
And I think that's the ultimate achievement of life, is getting to know who you are.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's brilliant, and that's why we're all here. I really believe that. For me, it's the feeling that I believe we're all born to live a life of light and ease. And I looked everywhere, and I looked at my life, and I was stressed and booked out, and looked at other people who are, majority of my friends were antidepressants, and I just thought there's something inherently wrong with that. There's a beautiful place for Western medicine, but I think that something is happening that's very dangerous in our society, and it was happening 10 years ago, and I think it has really blown up since. So for me, it was an overwhelming sense of anxiety and fear, and just this lack of like living the life, smelling the roses. And I really believe that we have to do that more now, more than ever before. So for me, it was observing this such unhappiness. Even though I was really stressed out, I felt happy. Even when I was going through my miscarriages, I found moments to be happy, or find some kind of meaning in the process. Contentment, not even happiness. And it really has evolved. I wanted to be the channel. I know I create a very safe space for people. For whatever reason, God has given me that. And I'll take that as a compliment. I think that's what it is. I pray. So for me, I ask that even tonight, I ask that I show up, that whoever is here should receive exactly what they're supposed to receive, and people who are going to be listening to this. That's very important to me, and I think that I'm just learning all the time. It's to continue to provide a safe space for people to be themselves and to have freedom to be themselves. So now I'm primarily do business coaching for entrepreneurs, and the struggle is the same: the shiny objects, the overwhelm, the stress. And we're supposed to be the happiest. We're doing what we love. We're creative, yet we're so miserable and so unhappy. And Instagram is becoming a very dangerous tool if not managed correctly. So I think it's not getting attached to the shiny objects or the millions. Everyone that I meet, when they come to me and say, in 4 years, I want to be a millionaire, help me get there. And I'm like, okay, let's have a conversation about what that means, because what we truly want is not millions. We may think we do. We want $60,000, an ability to travel, freedom to do whatever the hell we want, and happiness. At the core of it, most of us would be really happy with that. Now, do we want more? I mean, yes. But I don't need a jet to be happy. I don't need a Porsche to be happy. Those are the things that are just our expression of ourselves. So I think it's a reminder for people to like what truly matters. Money is not the answer. It's never going to be the answer. It's beautiful. Again, I'm the money person. I love it. We should make it. We can give it away if we don't want it. But getting caught up and having the struggle, for me, it's a pain to watch others go through that. So bringing them back to alignment. And when they get to alignment, money comes and the happiness comes. And I believe that we're in alignment when we are happy. This is something that I'm really working on right now. We radiate. I believe in energy. I believe in quantum field. Is that when I am in a good vibration, all of you are going to feel it when you're in my presence. So I'm responsible for the energy that I bring into the room.
So one of the ways that I kind of really nailed down what I wanted to focus on, because that is like what we've been saying, it's one of the hardest things to really figure out. I went back to this one compliment that an old friend had given me. And he had just told me, he's like, you naturally know how to make someone feel loved in your presence. And I was like, okay. And I was like, that was not only obviously something I kept coming back to, but it meant so much to me. It wasn't just like this was a compliment that I was like, ooh, look at how good I am at this. It was something where I was like, this means more to me than anything else. And so I kept coming back to that and kept coming back to that. And literally up until 2 years ago, when I decided to be a life coach, I had always assumed and believed that I would be a stay-at-home mom. And I was like, a career is just something that's getting me to that point. It's just what's happening in between now and when I get married and I live 100% off my husband's income and I don't need to ever work again. Right? Please, dear God, let that be the truth. And it was something where I was like, that was the only foreseeable way in my mind at that point in time how I could devote my life to making someone else feel loved. And when I realized that there was another route and that there was another way that I could do that and that I could actually make money from it, like you were saying, like my mind was blown. And so it just kept bringing me back to, this is what I want to do. This is the core of my business. This is the core of the way that I live my life. And when it gets into the nitty-gritty things of like, okay, should I offer this service or this service? It's like, this is just all different funnels and different formats for me to do this one thing. And sometimes in my life, one format's going to work better than the other one. I'm going to be more aligned. I believe that we're constantly becoming more and more aligned with who we are as we are constantly learning more and more about who we are. But for me, it really went back to that one compliment and realizing that I could make that a career.
That's awesome. And that's where we're going to end with my part of the podcast. Now we're going to open it all to you guys. And I know that you probably have been thinking of things throughout this time. So would anyone like to, and you'll probably have to come up so we can hear your question. Would anyone like to ask any questions? Otherwise, obviously, I'll ask more. Jeremy.
This was hinted at already, but I'm wondering how you deal with the aspect of comparison on social media. For a business, especially because you might have a business that has thousands of followers more than you and are never looking at what they're doing, or maybe a similar size business and then they get more response on something and then that adds pressure of like, oh, this next post needs to be really good or something like that. So I was wondering, how you deal with that.
It's a great question.
It's a fabulous question.
I can kind of jump in right off the bat. For me, a lot of it is really, really, for one thing, trusting myself and trusting that what I'm doing in the way that I feel aligned with and the way that I need to do it is going to work out in the end, because obviously that competitive aspect is fear-based. And I don't like living in a fear-based area. I don't like living in a lack-based mindset. I like trusting and I like moving forward and I like really trying to stay aligned with myself. That being said, obviously this happens to everyone. Like there's not a person, forget entrepreneur, there's not a person online who has not looked at someone else on social media and been like, dang, why can't I get that? And in those moments, that's when I do have to, and I'm an extrovert. I love talking to people. I love being out and meeting other people, but that's when I have to turn inward. And that's when I have to be like, okay, this triggered me. Why did this trigger me? What is the specific thing that I'm falling back into, whether that's a pattern or a mindset pattern? And it's really journaling, meditating, spending time in nature, and when I'm getting to that place where I'm really low and I've been doing that too much, I have to really take a step back. I mean, a couple people here, I've mentioned this tonight on Instagram, I have posted 3 times in the last month. My business is busy. It's not a problem, but I needed that time because I was like, I feel like I am on the go and running all the time, but yet I still have a never-ending to-do list that I've probably forgotten to put 10 things on top of it. And so it's like I needed to take that time and spend it with myself as opposed to looking outward all the time. And it's also understanding it's going to have ups and downs, and it's going to flow, and it's not always going to be feeling that way. And when I am feeling that way, remembering that it'll come back around.
I think that it's like a constant struggle that we're living in to kind of navigate that social media space. And when I catch myself comparing, which is that quote, comparison is a thief of joy. You don't need to be better than anyone else on social media. You need to be better than the person you were yesterday. And so you need to start focusing like more on yourself. When I find myself like, oh, I'm not that person, or like, I'm not that person, or I'm not that business. And then I remind myself, damn right you're not. And it's a good thing you aren't, because like, you're pretty awesome. And like, who were you yesterday and how can you be better tomorrow? So just focusing like more on yourself, like be selfish and say like, that's fine. And like, you don't need to tear down other people on social media or their business, even just mentally in your own head. Like we don't have space for that. You don't need to do it. Like, you don't need to tear them down or rip them apart because they have an awesome social media following. Congratulations for them. But how can you do better? Like, applaud them, maybe leave a comment and say like how great they're doing, and then like go about your social media in your day. And if you find yourself uplifting yourself and uplifting others and comparing less and like tearing other people down less, whether it's in your head or verbally you're saying it, like just take a step back and be like, I don't need to be better than them. I need to be better than who I was yesterday. And it just changes your mindset.
I love that.
Me too. Oh my God, this is really $1 million question, Jeremy. And it is, I could go on and on and on and on. It is probably number one thing and struggle that my clients go through. And these are women who are running sometimes like 6-7 figure businesses. They're incredibly successful. It doesn't matter whether you're running a business. I think that's the culture of simply being a human and feeling, am I enough? I think it's completely normal and natural that it's going to occur. I have fallen into the trap so many times. It's insane. So few things that were said, all incredible and amazing. The most important thing for me is when I am triggered, I did an interview with Portia Richardson last year, and she did something really interesting. She explained that there are smoky mirrors and clear mirrors. So when I'm comparing myself against someone, they trigger me in some way. If it's a clear mirror, it means like I'm envying, I want to be part of that. Instead of pulling them away and turning them into an enemy, I bring them closer. Which means that if I believe that we're all one, then I don't create a separation anymore. If I'm happy for them, then that comes back around. Again, I'm going to be a little woo, but it really works for me. So I will really engage with them, and I will say, oh my God, I love that. And I really do. Very often, I'm like, oh my God, how did they do that? I want to do that. That's not fair. I want to put an event like that. So I will say, this is incredible. So I will really honor it, because that's what I would want others to do for me. And it goes against, it's very difficult, but when I do it immediately, could you tell that just breaks that barrier right away? So my first tip would be leave a really genuine, loving comment on their post or their whatever it is. Second insight is that I work with some of the biggest influencers, TV personalities, and people who are names I can't even share, and I know that Instagram is nothing but a highlight reel. I know it for a freaking fact. I know that sometimes none of it is real. So I have to remind myself that sometimes there can be a whole lot of BS, and that I should never compare my own failure to someone else's successes or a highlight reel, because it's so nice and easy to create a beautifully filtered and orchestrated picture. I mean, I just walked in front of that thing thinking like I was in a fashion show posing. I'm going to use that on video, and people will be like, oh my God, right? I don't want that to be, I'll put a disclosure, but that's how easy it is to make someone feel like, oh my God, what a life, that's really, really envious. So I'm going to Europe. I am a part of a traveling mastermind I'm the only non-millionaire in the group. And we're going to exciting places. We're going to Monte Carlo and Paris. So people are going to be watching and following. They'll be like, oh my God. I'm sure people are like, I want that. But what they don't see is that how much I cry every night because I miss my children. Right? And I will share that too. So you have to remember that nothing is always as golden as it seems, and that we are all having truly a human experience. And then number 3, if normally it doesn't affect me because I can like, if I'm aligned, if I'm in a state of like light, it doesn't bother me. But if it does start to bother me, I shut it off, I walk out, because I know that I'm not at my highest level of service. And that's a spiral. You get there, it only gets worse. Stop, walk out, go in nature, take a 3-day, literally hiatus. 3 times a day, I completely delete Instagram app, like delete it. And that's been the greatest gift of all. This is, I mean, $1 million question. Thank you.
Yeah. We posted, I think I posted something last week. It says, don't compare your behind the scenes to someone's highlight reel. I posted that. And I think a lot of people don't think about that. One of the things I always recommend is if there's a specific account that you're following that just makes you unhappy, just unfollow them. Like, you don't have to follow them, like, you know, or just mute them. Just like you don't have to do anything. You can just turn it off and take a break. Any other questions? Yes.
How do you get into alignment every day? Or what are your questions and things that get you back into alignment?
This is like, that's my milieu. That's something that I am so passionate about, and I feel like it's, I mean, if in a different life, if I ever pivot, I'm going to be a spiritual teacher, like literally, because I'm becoming so woo, it's scaring my husband. But for me, I wake up every morning at 4 a.m. So it's the only time that I'm alone. Literally the only time in the day where I'm by myself. I'm an introvert, and I need that time. If I don't have that time by myself, I have 2 toddlers. Anyone here small children? Holy Hannah, like they're whirlwind, and if I am not balanced, like they just suck me into, when they start fighting, I want to crawl under a table and hide. And I think that's a natural response, also human. We don't like conflict, and they're constantly jumping on top of each other. So before they wake up, I have to be aligned. I spend insane amounts of money and time investing in meditation, nature, time away. So I meditate every single day, and when I don't, my day is not the same. I pray, I write, and if there's ever a moment where I start feeling anxious, I don't do anxiety, if that makes sense. And I don't think this is going to really rub a lot of people the wrong way, but I'm speaking my truth. I don't believe that daily anxiety is normal. I believe that it's a state for a lot of people who really deal with it, and I think that sometimes you really should get help. But for so many of us, 60% of Americans are on anti-anxiety meds. That's what I read, the latest statistic. You can't tell me that we all, like, there's something that wrong with us. I think it's being inundated with so much. Our bodies and minds simply cannot cope with that kind of information or data or sensory stimuli. It's impossible. So I love to completely disconnect, and I do visualizations. I will go in nature by myself, and I will hug the trees. I'm telling you, I'm a like total tree hugger. I will go and wrap myself around a tree. Like, have you seen Avatar? So I'll pretend like it's Awa, and then, and then I will imagine the light from the ground, like running through that tree and like entering me. I know it sounds crazy, but it works. So basically, it's whatever the hell works. Sometimes I'll dance in my underwear to Frank Sinatra and doing dishes. And it's like whatever I need to get back into state of like, some days it's a really killer workout. It changes, but honest to God, I feel for me, 80% of my life is making sure I'm in alignment, because when I'm in alignment, everything works out miraculously. I'm an Abraham Hicks fan, the whole law of attraction, the consciousness, whatever. Everything works out. So if there's one piece of advice or a tip that I would share with everyone that I'm learning, is that when we're aligned, you should read things by Joe Dispenza. What happens is that we raise our own consciousness. There's actual scientific studies that when we feel lighter, that we vibrate at a higher level, and we attract the things that vibrate at the higher level as well, people. So people are not going to flip you off when you're happy. It just doesn't happen, right? Or when they do, nothing's going to happen. Days when you're really pissed off and out of alignment, everything goes wrong that day. So I think that's I'm sorry, I'm like that's so passionate about that. It's like that's what I would do.
I think you hit on a topic that we're all pretty passionate about. I posted something, and I know Jenna reposted it, but it was alignment. It was about alignment and hustle, and I know she reposted on the Instagram page, and that is something that I really, really believe in. Hustling can make you money, but not as much money as alignment will make you, and not as much money as alignment and hustle together. But it's when I first started really realizing that I was out of alignment, it was triggered by this article I read that talks about what moments in your day do you like yourself when you're in them? What are you doing during your day when you're like, I really love who I am when I'm working with a client and we have an amazing breakthrough, or when someone tells me a compliment or that I made them feel good about themselves. I love who I am when I am cuddling with my cat on the couch. I love who I am when I'm in nature or meditating. Like, what are the moments when I really love who I am in those moments? And how do I create that more often? How do I incorporate that into my day more often? And also, I have seriously noticed major life differences. I don't have bad days really anymore. I don't have a day where, today at the gym I had a couple issues, but headphones stopped working, my hair binder broke, but that doesn't happen that often to me. I don't get out of alignment like that very often. I don't snap at people anymore. I'm not the type of person where when I'm living with someone and you say something that pisses me off, I'm not just going to snap at you. I take a deep breath and I'm like, you know what? It doesn't matter. I don't like myself when I snap at people, so I don't do it. And it's reminding myself all the time, when do I like who I am and when don't I like who I am? How can I do more of the one and not the other? And that's like how I try to do it every single day. And really be aware and pay attention to, because that's, I think, one of the biggest problems that we have in this world is we are not paying attention to what we're doing. We are running on autopilot. We are not being mindful. We're like, I'm going to work every day at this 9-to-5 job because I've been told. I was a magazine journalist, marketing specialist, and social media manager because I was good at reading and writing. It wasn't like even like I get to help people. I was just like, this is going to get me from point A to point B. I'm good at reading and writing. This will do it. Until I stopped and I was like, no, I can't run on autopilot. I have to make really impactful and important decisions every single day. Otherwise, my life will just be running on autopilot for the rest of my life, which is depressing. And so it was really saying, when do I like myself? When don't I like myself? How can I do this more?
I have a very simple answer, and it's just take a deep breath and ask yourself why. Like, if you wake up in the morning, or it's like you're going through something in that day and you feel anxiety or you feel stress, or you're like, oh my gosh, like I'm really emotional, I just don't feel like I'm doing good. Why don't you feel that way? For example, something like as simple as like your house is a mess and you're like cleaning and you're like, I only have an hour before I have to go do this, blah, blah, blah. Why are you stressed? And if it's because you're cleaning, why are you cleaning? Because if it's to make yourself feel better about being at home, like, then it's only a why that like you're trying to do, and you're like, you don't have to clean. Also, a why is to like, when I have like my busy weeks and like my long days at work, I'm like, why am I in pursuit of what I'm doing? And for me at the core, it's to help others. And so I'm like, okay, take a deep breath. You're gonna help people. You're gonna be able to do this. It's gonna be okay. So The Power of Why. There's a book by Simon Sinek, and I believe that's the title, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's called The Power of Why by Simon Sinek, and I would absolutely recommend anyone read that. And the second thing that helps me like align my days and my life and my moments is, one question some people ask is like, who inspires you most? And sometimes I want to whisper it, but I've gotten to the point of saying it out loud, and I'm like, it's myself. Like my future self inspires me. Like who I want to be tomorrow, like who I want to be in 5 years, who I want to be in 10 or 20 years inspires me. And I'm like, okay, you're going to have to get through this like rough month or like rough year or this moment, but like you're just going to, and also things are just feelings. Emotions are indicators on the quality of the thoughts that you're having. And so if you're feeling anxious or you're feeling like overwhelmed, it's possibly because of things that you're just thinking about in your head. And like, just get them out, write them on paper and go about your day and then just answer your why. And you'll feel a lot better. At least I do. And it doesn't cost anything.
Amazing. So that's going to be the end of the podcast, just for time's sake. If you guys have any more questions, you can come and talk to these ladies after. I'm sure they'll answer your questions. But thank you guys so much for being here for our first ever podcast live. Thank you guys so much for joining us. Woo!
Thank you guys for having us
Thank you.
also.